it's Christy with the Chirp YouTube channel. I'm here today with a very exciting new video. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. And I'd like to start by saying that I got a really nice email from a young woman who was concerned about her son for a multitude of reasons, but the one that she had the most questions about was something called echolalia. Echolalia is when a person repeats exactly what she hears without any changes to it to make it appropriate from her to come from her mouth. And this happens a lot when children with different kinds of diagnoses or developmental disorders or language learning difficulties begin learning language. This is a very useful step and a useful strategy for them to be able to learn language successfully. So we don't want to totally eliminate repetition, or what some families think of as parrot-talk. We would like to use it and shape it and mold it and build on it and help our children to be more successful than they already are by using this tool that's already in their toolbox. So I'm going to give you some strategies for doing that in this video. Some examples of echolalia might be when I wave to a child and say, "Hi, Adam." The child says, "Hi, Adam," instead of saying, "Hi, Christy." Or when you ask your child, "Do you want cheese?" Your child might say back immediately, "You want cheese?" And you know that means, "Yes, I want cheese," but he hasn't figured out how to turn those pronouns around to make it appropriate from his perspective. Or your child might repeat whatever was last in a sequence of options. So if you say, "Do you want Dora?" or Tico or Swiper?" your child will always say what comes last in the sequence. That also is echolalia. Every time a child does something, this is another example, every time your child does something, he might repeat the same phrase that was said when he did that thing the first time, or a year ago, or 3 years ago. So maybe every time you drive by the park, your child says, "Sliding and swinging, sliding and swinging." And that could be echolalia. And the first thing that I want to say to you, if you're noticing these behaviors in your child, is that a lot of these are very typical development stages. It's just that with a child who has typical language development and cognitive development, these things fall out of their toolbox, I guess. They don't need them very long because they have so many other language things going on. A child with a diagnosis of autism or language learning disability or something like that, they have a lot more difficulty learning language, and they tend to learn it in larger chunks. And it's called gestalt learning. So they learn language in chunks, and then as time goes by, they have to learn to break it down. Whereas we usually learn it from small bits and build it up to larger bits. And so we have to find kind of a middle path for these kids so that they can learn the chunks, but then we can teach them that all the individual bits have meaning too. And that is your job, and whatever therapists and help and providers besides you that are in your life and your child's life. So situation 1, I'm going to call pronoun reversal. And I know a lot of you already have concerns about this because it's so common. So very common. Once again, most children do this at some point. If it doesn't drop off in the first couple of years of your child's life, obviously it's not going to happen before they're speaking, but if your child starts speaking, does some pronoun reversals, and they don't sort of drop off around age 2 or a little bit later, then that might be something that you want to work on or that you want to have evaluated, just in case you need to help your child catch up a little bit. So children who repeat exactly what they hear oftentimes have difficulty understanding the meaning behind the pronouns because they don't connect the pronoun to the person that it is supposed to be connected to. So some examples might be, "You want cheese?" You might ask your kid if she wants cheese, and she says, "You want cheese," when she wants cheese. because that's what you said when she wants cheese. So she doesn't get yet that she needs to turn that phrase around and use a different pronoun. I want cheese to mean her. You means you. I means me. And that can be very complex. What about your turn and my turn? These are notoriously difficult for children, especially children with autism. So how do we deal with that? Because every time we hand the player or the dice to a child during a game, we say, your turn. Well, what's he supposed to think? He's supposed to think when it's his turn, he says, your turn. But that's not how it works. It's very confusing. What about you need help? Does your child bring you something and say, you need help, or help you? Or does your child come to you and lift up her arms and say, pick you up? These are some examples of pronoun reversal. And the best way to work on this is something called as if speaking. And I've done a separate video on this topic, so I'll put a link to it right here. But the basic idea is that you speak exactly as if you were speaking for your child in exactly the words that you wish her to repeat in that situation so that it's appropriate coming out of her mouth. So some examples might be, instead of you want cheese, you might model for her, I want cheese. And then she says, I want cheese, you give her cheese. You might model, instead of saying your turn and handing the player or the dice to your child, you might say, my turn, and hand the player or the dice to the child. Because then he's going to repeat my turn rather than your turn, which is what we want. Instead of saying, do you need help, or should I help you, you might model, I need help, please. Whenever your child brings you something that she wants help with, you might say, I need help, please, as a model. And that then will be what your child repeats. And the pick me up is the same one. Pick me up, rather than, do you want me to pick you up? Or, oh, you want me to pick you up? Oh, I want up, please, is much more effective. Now you can see that this does feel slightly awkward, or this might feel slightly awkward when you first start to do it. I had a really slow learn on this one because it felt so strange and awkward. But if you think about it, it's very logical, and I can assure you that it does work. And so stick with it and get your whole family on board, and your pronouns will be switching around before you know it. Another situation that you might find if your child uses echolalia as a language learning strategy is that your child always repeats the last option in a list. So for example, if you say, do you want Dora, Tico, or Swiper? Your child will always choose the last thing, Swiper. So there are a couple of different strategies that you can use to deal with this particular thing. And the first one is my favorite, and it is a communication book. And the reason we use this is because it's visual, and visual things usually help our kids to learn better than just auditory, because our visual system, assuming your child doesn't have a vision impairment, our vision system usually is more successful at gathering information, especially when we're very young or just learning language, than is our auditory system. So what this helps with is it helps a child connect visual things that she knows to words and to organize them in a better way inside of her head. So this book has an I. It should actually have an I want, but it just says I on this one. And then it has a please on the end. And I use a program to create these little visuals that you don't need by any means. You can simply take a photo, a digital photo of your child, and use it here and put I want above it. And then you can just print out please on a piece of paper and laminate it and have it be please. Or you can do the sign for please and take a picture of somebody doing the sign for please and put it here. There are plenty of options. You don't need any specific software. But the software that I do use, I love, and it's called Boardmaker. And I will put a link to that website down below so you can see a little bit more about how it works and if it might be useful to your family. So that's always on the outside of the book, and then on the inside of the book are the options that the child might have at any particular time. And so if I am offering, let's say I'm offering 3 choices right now. The choices are the pop-up pirate game, bubbles, or blowing up balloons. And these are the 3 things that I want to offer to my child. I might say, do you want pirate, bubbles, or balloons? If your child is echolalic, you can guess that she's probably going to say balloons because that's the last thing I said. However, if she says balloons but grabs the pirate or reaches for the pirate, you say, I want pirate, and you help her to take it off and put it in the front into the sentence, and you model together with her, if she's willing to point or if she's willing to speak, I want pirate, please. And then you go play pirate. So this really takes away a lot of the stress on the child to try to answer a question, organize her thoughts, pay attention to any visual cues that might be going on. It just really decreases the stress and language required for your child to understand if you have a little bit of extra support, like a visual communication book. So that is my first and favorite strategy for repeating the last thing in a list. And the second strategy for that particular issue surrounding echolalia is to change up the order in which you offer the options. So instead of putting her favorite option last, put her favorite option more towards the front of the list so that she has to think a little bit more when answering rather than just repeating the last one. That doesn't usually work though, because the problem is that she's not thinking before she answers, she's just answering. And we need to find a way to help her think. And one of the ways you can do that is by using your hands. So do you want Dora, Tico, or Swiper? And this actually works probably better if you just have 2 options, Dora or Swiper. Even if you have nothing in your hand, a lot of the times the child will reach for the one that she wants. So if she wants Dora and you say Dora or Swiper, she's probably going to reach for this hand, even though there's no Dora in it. And that is, it acts as that visual cue. If you don't have a communication book, I highly recommend it, of course. It works super great. But if you don't have one or you don't have it with you, you can use your hands, and children often respond kind of similarly. They might say one thing but reach for the other one, and then you can sort of build on it and repair the communication breakdown, which is, I said something I don't want. And here's an example of how to repair it once a child asks for something that she doesn't actually want. If you say apple or orange and your child says orange, but she really wants the apple, she's going to have a little bit of a fit because she really wants the apple and she's trying to ask for it, but she didn't succeed, and you're giving her the wrong thing, and it's really upsetting. So when she starts to demonstrate frustration, you can say, oh no, that's not what I want. I changed my mind. I want the apple, please. You can give her a little mix of statements and phrases that she might use in that situation next time. I changed my mind. That's a really great phrase for you to model for your kids. Once again, notice that I'm modeling these things from the child's perspective. I'm using as if speaking. So I'm not saying, oh, you changed your mind. You want the apple. That's going to compound her problem because there's so many pronouns in there. So instead you say, I changed my mind. I want the apple, not the orange. I don't want the orange. So you can model for her the language that she should use, and that will be more successful at getting her wants and needs met next time, so she won't have to have a little fit. Situation 3 is repeating things from previous experiences even though they're not appropriate anymore. So this example is the one where you might be driving past the park and your daughter says, swinging and sliding, swinging and sliding. And every time you drive past the park, maybe she repeats that because that's the phrase that she remembers you saying from a month ago or a year ago or 3 years ago when you went to the park that time. So this can mean a lot of things for your child. Echolalia in general can mean and can serve many purposes in your child's life, in your child's emotions, in your child's sensory system, in your child's language development. It serves a lot of purposes, and I'm going to put a couple of links down below that really explain that quite well. I don't want to make this video 3 hours long, so I'm not going to go into all of those. But you want to build on whatever it is that your child is saying, and you want to expand on it. So pretend that the words that your child is repeating are blocks, and you want to build a nice conversational tower. And so you need to add your blocks, like how you're building with a child. If they build one block on top of another block, it's usually kind of unstable. So before you put your block on top, you kind of straighten those blocks that the child put down, and then you put your block on top, because it's more likely to stay up. And that's kind of what we want to do with echolalia. We want to straighten the child's blocks, so anything that's language-wise or socially not quite appropriate, we want to fix that. And then we want to add a little bit of complexity on top, and keep on doing that as your child's language production gets more complex. So, for example, with the park, maybe your child is saying that she wishes she could be there swinging and sliding right this minute. If you think that's what it is, you might say something like, swinging and sliding is so much fun. Mama, can we go swinging and sliding right now? Maybe she will repeat that. Maybe she'll say, right now? And you can say, not right now. I'm going to Target. We can go to the park tomorrow. And so you're helping her ask a question, because maybe that's what she was trying to do. You're helping her ask a question, and then you're responding to it. And so you did actually make a communication. Yay, that's fabulous. Maybe your child is just remembering how much fun she had last time you went to the park, in which case you might build on what she says by modeling, once again from her perspective. Last week I had fun at the park. I did swinging and sliding. And so you're modeling for her how she could tell a little story about her experiences, because maybe that's what she's trying to do with her repetition. Or you might just add, swinging and sliding is fun. I can't wait to do it again. So you could be really creative with how you respond based on what you think she might be trying to tell you with her echolalia. When your child repeats phrases that don't make any sense to you, share your confusion. So you need to have a good facial expression, but you might say, I don't know what you're trying to say. I'm confused. Or, wait, that doesn't make any sense. The kids that I've worked with who did a lot of echoing really loved it when I went, wait! And they usually would stop and look at me, and I'd go, that doesn't make any sense. And then I would introduce a phrase that made a lot more sense within the context of whatever they were doing. So I have an example of a little guy who used a lot of repetition to calm himself when he was a little bit nervous. So he would be doing something that was a little scary, and he would say the same phrase over and over and over, but it wasn't relevant to the situation at hand. It was just a phrase that actually nobody knows exactly where it came from. He got this phrase who knows where, but it must have been something that was soothing for him at the time. And so every time he did something scary, he would say this phrase over and over. Well, the way that we sort of worked with this one is to give him phrases to use instead, like, I'm nervous, but it's okay, I'm brave. And so when he was doing that phrase that didn't make any sense, we kept repeating what we thought was more appropriate. And in this case, he could start using it, once again, from his perspective, I'm nervous, but it's okay, I'm brave. So he could start replacing kind of nonsensical self-talk with self-talk that's appropriate and where the pronouns are correct, and that is going to help him through this stressful time because it's positive self-talk. And we all need to work on speaking positively to ourselves inside of our heads. So as you can see, the best way to deal with echolalia is not to see it as a hindrance for your child. It's not to see it as a deficit or something that's wrong with your child. It's to see it as a tool that your child already has in her toolbox and that you can use and build on and mold and shape and make into something that's even more effective. And so as you do that, feel free to leave comments down below about how it's working for your particular child, or instances that you're not quite sure how to deal with that particular kind of echolalia. Let's chat about it. If you have other questions, you know where to reach me. Don't forget to subscribe. Click on the little logo up there in the upper right-hand corner of the video, and you will never miss any of these fascinating and oh so helpful videos. I hope that you have a great day. Don't forget to check down in the box below because I left you some fascinating links about echolalia. Have a wonderful day. Bye.